And welcome to the This Week in Worcester podcast. I am Tom Marino, editor of This Week in Worcester. I am with John Keough, who is the executive producer for Manny J Media. What's going on, John?
Nothing much. I just reposted this with multiple ridiculous names for you.
Excellent. Thank you. How has your week this week been better? Is my first question for you. Is it a little less crazy out there for you?
Yeah, it's been better. Obviously, well, it wasn't bad for me. I really don't. I feel like, I guess, in a weird way, the cable controversy helps me. I don't know why, but it does. I guess at least it does in the eyes of the local media. But no, it was a good week. We had a good Manny J Media week, and I have some positive forward momentum on a couple of our other projects, Hollywood Film Group and different things. So, I see the mayor almost coming.
Shows, they're awesome. And now we're all screwed up. Here we are. We're back to normal. No, good.
How was your week?
Onward we march. I don't get into such exciting things as you. I don't have controversies whirling around me through no fault of your own, for sure. But I don't get to go make a spectacle at City Hall. So
yeah.
And again,
I mean, there's other times. So. Maybe I'll make more of a spectacle. I think, I think there's a chance for people to do things that can help people. And I think sometimes using whatever platform you have to do it is the right way to do it. That's it. So I hope I did that last week, and I hope I continue to do it.
No,
I think even what we're doing right now is good. It's good. It's good to have more media out there to do more stuff.
For sure. Well, let's get into our first topic of the day, and it's something that irritated me profoundly. At last week, because it was not a city council meeting this week because it's budget time. There was a meeting, the finance committee, which is all the councilors, but it wasn't. They just did budget stuff. We'll talk budget in a bit, but I wasn't happy.
Muted.
What's that?
It's muted.
Why?
I don't know.
This is what we get for doing this live. All right, let's try again. Stupid technology. What about now? Oh, that's terrible. All right, I guess we wing it. There was a petition before City Council. I don't know why that's not working. There was a petition before City Council asking for the Public Safety Committee, which will meet for its second time of the year this month, to hold hearings on systemic racism. And there were a couple weird there were a couple misspellings in the petition written by the citizen, but overall, I mean, I'm not sure why that matters. And the chairperson of Public Safety, Councilor Toomey, said that the committee will be reviewing crime statistics in its upcoming meeting, and that's very important. And won't be first try to file, which means throw in the trash bin, this petition, and that motion failed. So they then tabled it. So now we get to look at this thing on the agenda for the rest of the time, which I kind of like, because at least we can see what they didn't do. And if you pull up the last public safety meeting, it was largely about statistics. So, I mean, I hate to keep beating the drum on my charter crusade, but yet again, just another example of how committees don't really do a lot of work. Some of them, at least. And again, that is not a commentary on Council Toomey. That is a commentary on our system, and that our committees are kind of worthless, except for a couple of them. I just wanted to, and sorry I didn't pull it up previously, but the last meeting it had on March 14th, the items it took up were petition to change the age limit from 32 to 38 for to become a Worcester police officer, and information communication relative to information on gun violence and firearms seized by the police department, and informational communication relative to drug trafficking statistics. So is this all we do in public safety, is look at statistics and approve things to spend money on when the police department wants to? It's a little infuriating to me. The request was, at least as it reads on the agenda, was request standing committee on public safety investigate the issue of systemic racism in public safety with public hearings included. I'm just not sure why we're not going to have this conversation ever.
So I guess when it comes to this, oh, you muted.
Oh, did I mute?
Oh no, you're delayed.
Oh, yeah. A little bit of delay. I'm here.
Now you're off the delay. Delay's gone. And so, hey, it's week 2, right? We're gonna work all this stuff out. The thing that strikes me about this is, to me, these questions are open questions, right? And if there's nothing that's a problem, then if there is an investigation, wouldn't the investigation then result in affirmation? And the problem is that the fear that I hear coming out of the voice of opponents of this is that maybe they would find something. And if that something was found, then it would be like a problem somehow, right? But the thing is that if it exists, wouldn't we want it to be found? Right? Unless we're saying that we don't want it to be found. Like I don't know what the option really is. And so to me, why wouldn't we want to do this? Why not just review this in general? Why isn't this like a yearly checkup? Right? Like, if the city is sick, if to treat the city like a patient, right? Who's going in for his annual checkup. Wouldn't you want to be found healthy? I mean, that's how I look at it. And so I feel like it doesn't make a lot of sense to resist this review, and not just this review, but other reviews. But this review in particular, because we do have people calling for it, and it was a citizen's petition, right?
Correct.
So that was filled out correctly. I understand that there was some misspellings or whatever, but to be honest with you, I've seen some misspellings in official city proclamations too. So, whatever. Everybody misspells things. I blame that on Microsoft and Bill Gates. It's all his fault because of autocorrect.
Facts. I got the petition right here. I got the petition right here. It says, whereas the disparities in arrest reports show a disproportionate number of Black and Latino people arrested in Worcester, the police chief has said that this systemic racism harms Black and Latino people. Whereas the statement of the Worcester police chief is evidence of a clear and present danger, we ask City Council to assign the Public Safety Committee to the task of investigating the issue of systemic racism in public safety. The investigation should include public hearings. And Councilor Toomey declared that there was some sort of incorrect information within those statements. And I just...
So the interesting thing is that the police chief agreed with the report that was just released some weeks ago, right? He didn't disagree with it. And so, if the chief of police agrees with it, then why wouldn't Councilor Toomey want to do what the chief of police is saying? Unless, of course, there's a different element of people that are trying to influence what the narrative is related to the police department. I have to give the interim chief his credit, right? He's been trying to do some of these things we've asked for, these basic steps of public accountability. It doesn't make sense to not ask these questions. So just ask. It doesn't make it like just let's do it and get it over with. It's not that big of a deal. I think that when the denial happens, then people really look even harder and say, "Well, why are you denying this?" And then I think some of the things that need to be reviewed are kind of prevalent in our our public statements. Oops, my phone just started ringing and potential spam. Yeah, I'll show everybody on the screen. I got potential spam coming from some number. I don't know. Sorry, potential spam. Should I answer it? You want me to answer it live? Is this good for the show?
No, I want you to keep talking.
So I think I think that those things are. Did it come through? Oh,
What?
I don't know. 258-4992. Anyways,
Anyway,
I think that I really think that anything that is negative should be investigated just in general to make sure that we're not like going into it. But there's a lot of public statements that you see in the city that kind of indicate that they're not really paying attention to the language that has been kind of developed over the past 20 years, the framework for dealing with cultural and racial distinctions. And so at least we need to talk about how things are being said and why they're being said that way. If it's with intention, then yeah, we got an obvious and open case of evidence that there's a lot of this systemic racism exists. If it's being said by mistake, that shows that there's a lack of training, which we've heard the counselors and we've heard the police unions say we need training, we need training, we need training. So either
yes.
way, whether it's the really bad guys or it's just the lack of training thing that we hear a lot, it's going to result in a better city, right? So again, why I just can't. I can argue down a bunch of corridors. I can't find a reason to say no to this um, that makes any sense, other than you know. I don't
Yeah,
want,
other
and I
than
don't want to like come out and blanket label people, but it's starting to look more and more like maybe that's the way it has to happen. Maybe the only way to get people to pay attention to the city is to just have a massive press, controversy, make the news, and just like blanket statements all over the place. And that's the only, and even that doesn't work. But so I don't know what to do. I don't know. I don't know how to have these conversations. It seems futile.
it sure does. And we'll spend. I don't know how much they spent on the report. I don't really care. It was a good report. On the equity audit document, and then I'm not saying they're not doing stuff. They seem to be doing stuff, but it's in a document. It can be packaged and then spun, right? And like
Right.
you can't spin a public hearing. And it's
No,
just
you can't because you have to give people the opportunity to speak. And in a public hearing in those smaller committees, the same thing that happened in our committee, people have a chance to speak more and kind of explain themselves. Because those 2 minute and 3 minute blocks that you get at city council, you can't explain a full issue, especially something as detailed and deep as systemic racism. Systemic racism, there's colleges that like you can get a degree in studying systems and these things. So like you can't. There's not enough time to explain it in a 3 minute city council blurb. So a public hearing in a smaller committee, that's what it's designed for, to give people the opportunity to speak. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with having people speak? There's a couple people that speak at the city council regularly. When I was there last weekend, there's the tendency to cut them off before their time because maybe they don't make sense in the way that you want. Maybe they can't, say things. But the law says that they're supposed to have the opportunity to speak. And so I don't know where we got into this thing where the city council at any point is denying anybody the opportunity to talk, even if they disagree with them. One of the things that happened with the cable thing is, Steve and I put in that petition, it got denied. And then the denial was this long, convoluted way to like say we were employees, but if you go back to that rule itself, why can't employees say things negative about the city manager? Why? What is the now? I get it if someone gets up there and just starts throwing f bombs and just disrupting, but that's what the rules of order are for. So if someone's being disruptive, there's rules for that. There's a construct that already exists on how to deal with that. But if someone just gets up and says, "Well, I disagree with you," what's wrong with that? Disagreement is not division. Disagreement is good. It's good. You and I disagree about a bunch of stuff, Tom, but we're buddies, right? We're still friends, and that's okay. Manny and I, we disagree about a billion things, but we're still friends because that's okay. It's okay to disagree about stuff. You don't have to uh, be in lockstep. What are we, robots? That's not the right thing. So open the gates. If there are any city councilors listening, open the gates, let people talk, let them say what they need to say, and just be open to these conversations, even if they make you uncomfortable. And they're gonna make you uncomfortable if you feel complacent about these systems of iniquity that exist. And to say that there is no system at all is just, come on, like, it's just silly. I know exactly what I'm saying, what I look like. I understand that there's this really resistance to saying that there's inequalities that are visibly present in our world. And people resist saying that. But it's obvious and right in front of your face. Why wouldn't you say this is clearly happening? It is. It doesn't make you different to say that. By the way, you can still be racist if you really want to be, right? And but at least that you can admit, hey, there's a problem over here, but I hate that guy. Okay, all right, fine. Go ahead, do that. Be as racist as you want to be. But you can't deny that racism exists. It's silly. It's silly. It's 2024. So
Well, and I
this
just,
doesn't make any sense. Be as
this
racist
goes,
as you want. Go jump from the moon, the bridge. Go yell and scream in the street. But let people talk, man. Let people talk.
yeah, it goes back to, and I've been saying it since we learned that there was a federal investigation. Are we going to have a conversation about how we got here? Like, regardless
Whose
of
fault
the
is the federal investigation?
regardless of the results of that investigation, that we get investigated, that the city's being investigated is not good, or the city's police department is not good. And are we going to have a conversation about how we got here and how we're going to, and to understand that is the ability to plan to never be here again. And, as I've said many times now, like a broken record that nobody's listening to,
I hear your record.
Just waiting for the federal government the city is just waiting for the federal government to do its job for them.
Pretty much. But what happens if they come back and say that that they're guilty? What do they do then?
Oh, then it's mop up time, and then it's finding somebody to blame it on. That's what's going to happen.
You got a little delay again.
I know. I don't know what or why. I am watching it happen, and it's making me sad. Next, you wanted to talk budget, so
I like budget talk. You want me to go over the budget?
Where do we want to start?
Okay, so I want to talk about this. I want to talk about the budget in pieces. I think that, again, these topics, you have to take a lot of time to like really study them and to really understand like specific things. So I don't want to start by talking about line items that we saw some of the counselors. They're like, why is this 500,000 now? But we can get into that in a second. But I want to start with why we're where we are as a city in the budget process, right? You and I were talking about before the show. So like, how does the budget even happen? So in our city, we have two executives that are hired by two boards, right? So the school committee appoints a superintendent of schools. The superintendent of schools, once she's confirmed, or they're confirmed, but in this case it's a she, writes a budget, sends it to the school committee. The school committee then goes through that, can reduce it can't take anything out, forwards that budget to the city councilor, right, or to city council. The city manager prepares a overall budget that includes the superintendent's budget, takes that document and then presents it to the city council. And then now we're in the midst of the hearings related to that, right? The school committee is doing parallel hearings on the school items, right? But eventually there'll be a hearing where the city council also talks about the school items, right? At some point they come together, right, before the budget is passed. So that's the process. So we have two people who write a budget. Now they have big teams, so it's not like they're doing it by themselves. And then the city councilors vote on the overall budget. I don't know the last time a budget was denied. I don't remember if there has been a denied budget in my lifetime. Right? Has there ever been a denied budget?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I know of.
Okay. So often this process is it is marked. There has been times when, and particularly when former city councilor Rosen was present, where there was things taken away because he was very effective at taking things off. And he really was. At least in my time paying attention to Worcester politics, Councilor Rosen was the most effective that I ever saw do that. But most of the time, these budget items are just kind of passed. They get discussed a little bit, but you don't really see movement because the city council doesn't have the ability to reappropriate things within the concept of the budget. They get a budget, they can take some things off, but they can't move money around. So they can't say, take $12 million from the police and give it to the school. They can't do that, right? So when people argue publicly, like, why are there this much in the police budget and we're losing teachers over here? That argument, while I understand it, isn't necessarily how our budget works in the city of Worcester. And so, and I'm not, I know that people get really sensitive about it because we have the list that comes out every year of all the people that make these salaries. That list is we went over it. You and I talked about police officers earning 200,000, the city manager earning 300,000, and then you have a teacher who was making 45,000 who gets laid off, right? So it's like it makes sense from a citizen's perspective to say, hey, this guy is making 275K. Why can't he make 225 and we keep the teacher? So I agree, but our process is not set up for that to take place. Right? So that's the problem, is that the process doesn't allow what we all see as an obvious failing in the process. And so, because it makes a lot of sense to me. I would go, if I was the city manager, I would go to the different deputy chief B, whoever it is, and say, hey, dude, I'm going to cut your salary 40 grand and I'm going to keep teacher, Mrs. Sullivan that's over at Ferncoat or whatever. And make sure that we have a teacher and you're going to have to go without. Why is it that we never ask anybody to go with less? We just eliminate positions that are I guess in our minds frivolous, and then you see I watched Superintendent Monterez as she's talking about it. She's like distraught over this. She doesn't want to let these people go. She's not. It's not like it's a hard, tough decision, and people immediately, including former Superintendent Bienvenida, started attacking the administrative budget. But the administrative budget of the school is less than 3% of the total school budget. Right. So 97% goes to teacher salaries. It is what it is. The numbers, you can't get away from the numbers. So she's not cutting a big chunk. She's making the vast majority of investment is in our teachers, but she doesn't have enough to keep the teachers that we already have. And part of that is federal money, right? So federal money comes and goes. And so when we make budget decisions during times of federal influx, there's a time later on when we have to pay for that. And that's what's happening right now. So ARPA funds, propped up the school system with additional funding during COVID, which, should we have not taken the money? Should we? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I mean, that's a more complicated conversation. But because our process
taking ARPA money?
Is,
of course we should have. Of course we should have taken ARPA money.
What I'm saying is that when you take that money, you hire that teacher, at some point that money runs out. and that teacher being the last teacher hired is the most likely teacher to be let go. Now, that gets into
So that's
tenure and go ahead.
yeah. So, but that's not my understanding of what the issue is. My understanding is a big part of the problem with the school budget is the previous inflation rate. It has now come down a
Yeah.
bit, but
Well,
and the way
let's drill
state
into
funding
that.
is calculated. Hold on, and the way state funding is calculated isn't keeping up with inflation. They're looking at maybe a fix for that, but as of right now, there isn't one.
Right. So inflation hasn't come down at all. All that's come down is the rate of inflation.
Well,
But
yes, we've been over
inflation,
this.
yeah, inflation is cumulative. So of course, it's not. They're not. They were never matching the real rate of inflation, which was during certain periods of time. And it's not. By the way, I hate when they blame one president. It has nothing to do with the president. It has to do with so many other factors. And so when you blame or you let them take credit for it, you literally are failing at American politics 101. And they do it on purpose. Like, don't listen to that statement. It's so nonsense. And that criticism is directed at Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and all of you that do that. You report the inflation rate as if you know what you're talking about. Real costs always go up over the course of time in relation to people, right? There's more people, real costs go up. It's just natural increase. Population increases cost. But anyways, that one makes me I get so frustrated about that. But so the thing is that means that there has to be a projection of population. Now our city is growing. Ta-da! So that means there's going to be more kids in the schools, which means we need what? What do you need for more kids? More
More
teachers.
teachers.
So then there should be there should be an outlay of it going up. And there wasn't an anticipation because no one wants to anticipate cuts. No one, no one, no one, no one. In this case, I think Superintendent Monterez has shown again her incredible professional level and the great blessing of what the national search has delivered with her is we have someone who actually knows how to deal with a budget in times of good and times of bad. You cannot replace that talent. That talent is unbelievable. She's teaching administrators what it means to be an administrator right now by going through this budget process. And I want to point something out that the school committee's been through over the past, I don't know, maybe 18, 20 years. This is not the first time Worcester's laid off teachers. Why are we acting like this is the first time? Like, we've done this before. We've gone down this road. In fact, this is going to be a hard thing to hear, but there was just a recent renegotiation of the contract, which increased wages, right? And that's good. We all agree with that. But now here's the other part of that is that sometimes when you increase wages, right, and the budget comes down, there's going to be people on the end, even though we have teachers overall making more average, that there's going to be people that are let go, and that sucks. But that's the reality that we live in, and I just think that the process needs to change from the individual presentation to a more open discussion. This version of the school committee over the last couple cycles has done a great job of being upfront and out there about individual items. But man, is it tough? Is it a tough conversation to tell a kid, what happened to this teacher? Where'd they go? And they don't work here anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the nature of the budget process. All right, so that's one thought. But the other thought is about the city budget, right? Which is actually only 45% of the total budget, right? And we've talked about this a lot. How come we can't deal with these salaries being so high for certain people, right? And the investment of resources in their salaries versus other people. One of the things that happened at that last city council meeting, and I was there, is that they cut some money from the water and the sewer department, right?
They didn't. So yeah, but they didn't, and this got a little out of control too.
Yeah.
This narrative. So they didn't cut. They had money left over from positions that haven't been hired, and they transferred that into a different fund. It's not that
They
big.
did, but it was presented as being a cut, right? by one of the people who spoke about it, because that's really,
Right.
again, and this is not a criticism of the person speaking, it's a criticism of the way that the city presents the process. And part of it's because the process is so hidden behind a wall that they don't want people to be involved with it, that you end up having people misinformed. They happen with the cable thing. We're on the cable committee for years, and we're saying there's no such thing as an exclusive license. I had people come up to me and they were telling me there was a monopoly. Well, there's still people who say it even to this day, but it's not
Yeah.
a monopoly. It's just no one's coming in. But when you say that to someone, they just don't agree, even though they're factually wrong. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? How do you convince that person to think differently? So the same thing's happening here. I was there. I saw the line item. I heard the person get up and give testimony. I didn't have or to give a public comment. They were completely wrong, but they didn't know that. And
Right.
then, of course, then people who were in the water and sewer department heard about the person's commentary and
Right. And then
started
it turned
freaking
into a
out.
whole thing. Yeah.
Right, it turned into a whole thing, but there was no thing there. That kind of thing is where you would want, like, education, which, if there was a more transparent process of the budget, I think that would lead to it. Another great thing that came up is the potholes, right? So we have this system that's supposed to help us with potholes, but there should be a phased resurfacing program that just moves around the city on a timed basis. Because we live in New England, we have 4 seasons, which means that no matter what, the cement is going to crack. Welcome to New England. If you live here, this is reality. So the roads are going to crack. It comes from heat, and it goes like this. It expands in the heat, shrinks in the cold, expands in the heat, shrinks in the cold, it breaks. Water gets in the middle, it makes it worse and worse and worse. We live on hills, it pools. There's so many different reasons why, but it's going to happen. But there's never been a programmed approach to the way the city streets are handled, so that some people legitimately are like, "How come my pothole never gets fixed?" Like the pothole on Main Street, right? That has been there for 30 years. Was just, and you can see the cobblestones in the street. It's just, oh my goodness. But like, I mean, we're from Worcester, and it becomes like a thing. That's so Worcester, right? Like that's very
Mm.
Worcester thing.
Peak
But there should
Worcester.
be a system to handle that, and there
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be a system. So then, when you do see some resurfacing or repaving projects, like what happened with Mill Street, which, by the way, I'm not getting into the controversy of the bike lanes. It's ridiculous, the fighting over there. But by the way, Mill Street was one of the worst streets in the city for 20 years as far as resurfacing. No one even noticed. They also repaved it, and it's wonderful to drive on now. There's no potholes anymore, especially when you buy Coe's Pond, right? There's no that big giant pothole's gone. You people are losing axles in that thing. So I think, again, it's about how are those things handled, and why don't we have like a like for the street sweeping, they put a map and they tell you they're gonna be on this street and that street. They go around, they hang up signs. Why don't they do the same thing for the paving, which is a big part of the budget? And again, you have those things brought up. It seems like priorities are not presented well. If that makes
No.
sense.
No. And of course, as part of that, I don't think they've done it yet. But along with this budget season comes the annual underfunding of the Worcester City Council.
Yeah, and so here again, so now people are gonna say like, "Oh, why are you?" They should be paid more. One, first of all, this role is not. It's a part-time role, but it shouldn't be. But even at the part-time
Not.
role,
It's
what
just
they
paid
do is
like one.
it's paid like one. They work crazy hours, right? However, whatever you want to say about a city council that you don't like, I know most of them, and I have to give them credit. They meet with their constituents, they talk, they do work. It is what it is. Maybe others are more lazy than the other, but I do see them out in the streets and I see them working hard. I want to say one thing real quickly to two of the new councilors. So Louis Ojeda and Jenny having weekly neighborhood meetings, which in District 4 has never happened. And I live in District 4, and I'm not trying to say anything towards anybody who was District 4 before, but Louis is having these neighborhood meetings every week all around the district, and he's going to all these different areas. That's awesome. I've never seen that in District 4. And it's he's becoming like really well known. So credit to that guy because he's going out listening. And by the way, there's a bunch of people in District 4 that didn't vote for him. So he's going and listening to Katya's voters. That's a big deal, man. To me, I see that as positive for the city. So, but he's not getting paid for that. They're getting paid 35 grand, right? If anybody wants to look, 35 grand is about minimum wage. If you work it out over 40 hours and whatever, do they have some benefits from it? I guess a little bit, but it's really not that much. And so they should be paid more, and there should be a bigger budget for their staff. It makes no sense that they don't have enough staff. And I'm not telling them, you brought up Boston and Cambridge. We're not asking for them to have 100 people, but they should have 10. They should have 10. Each one of them should have a person. And the mayor has 2, and the other city councilors should each have 1. I don't know. I don't know how to say it. Even though Erica, who's their person, is unbelievable, bro. She's great. The full time.
She's got to be. She's got to stand on her head all day.
Yeah, I believe me. I'm in City Hall all the time, and I watch her. She's got to deal with me first of all. Right off the bat, that's a problem. She's got to deal with Manny, right? She's got to deal with all of us, and she's great. So, but she needs help too. So there should be a funding of those positions, and they need a budget for an attorney. They need their own attorney. They have to have someone who can give them advice that's not working for the city manager. He's an executive. Right. They're a legislative branch. They need a different lawyer. And it should be paid for by the budget.
Oh. Yeah. Well, look, we've said this before. Council has 3 things to do. It has 3 main responsibilities in this silly system that we have. Hire the manager, approve the budget, pass ordinances. And that it's one of its 3 core responsibilities. It requires, the solicitor who works directly for the city manager, can be fired by the city manager, that, they require the services of the city solicitor to do their primary function, which is he's the lawyer that writes the ordinances, right? Knowing what you want the ordinance to do, or knowing you want to put a restriction or release a restriction, whatever you want to do, is fine. But having the person to write that into the legalese so that it doesn't contradict either state law or your own previous ordinances or whatever, having somebody to do that, you need a lawyer to do that. And, and they get to use the city manager's lawyer, which is insane. It violates, just the basic tenets of American democracy.
Well, a perfect example is this petition that we were just talking about, right?
Yep.
If the city council had their own attorney to review whether the petition met the language, then you don't even need to bring in the city manager. It can go right to committee. It can start to go through the process. And then if it makes it back out, great. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. Maybe that's the process that happens. But at least it was reviewed by a lawyer who understands legislation versus execution. There's 2 different operations there. City solicitor trainer who's not happy with me right now. His job is to execute the city manager's legal prerogatives from an executive branch position. Yep. And by the way, he should like me because I've done nothing but good things with that guy. He just doesn't like I disagree with him right now. But that's the problem, is that again you have this kind of obscurity of the budget, and you need these independent things. By the way, the city council having their own lawyer is provided for in the charter. They're allowed to hire one.
Oh, they're allowed to, yeah.
Oh, so actually, I don't know. One.
I don't know. So yeah,
why wouldn't they be allowed to hire a lawyer?
Because I believe the way the charter is structured, they hire the clerk and the auditor, and that's it. That's the only powers they have to hire people. Everybody else actually works for the clerk.
So then, how did I get to hire a lawyer?
You're not
on a voluntary committee.
You were, as part of that commission, you were part of the executive branch, and it can apparently do whatever the hell it wants.
Okay, that's interesting. So that's good to know. It's annoying, but that's another thing that should be explicitly detailed in the charter. Again, the city council needs its own attorney. They really do.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, Boston is I think it's 228% bigger than Worcester. Its budget is 400% bigger than Worcester. Its staff is 800% bigger than Worcester. That does not correlate, right? No, actually, staff is way more than that. It's because Worcester City Council is 5 and they have 119. We don't need 119, right. But maybe as a percentage of same percentage as the difference in population, or maybe the difference in budget, or some sort of holding some sort of metric there that would would make the two comparable. Because I mean, look, but the other thing here, we are in charter world again. The other thing is, they have these things called hearings in Boston. I just recently looked at last two city council meetings in Boston. You know how many reports were requested? Take a guess.
I don't know, 100?
0.
Oh, well, there you
because
go.
they can because they have hearings and they can get their own information.
That was a trick question, Tommy. You tricked me.
Yeah, I did. And you know how many in the last two Worcester City Council meetings? How many reports were requested?
A bunch.
31.
Right.
And half of those, maybe more, won't ever come back.
And they should, and we need them. We need that information. And so that's what it comes down to. So talking about those two aspects of the budget, I know that people don't want to get into. It's funny when we were talking about the cable thing in the city council meeting. City Councilor Prasio, Jenny, she used the word wonky in reference to what I'm saying, right? Because normally people don't like to get into the details. That's what being a wonk is, right? A policy wonk. So someone who likes to really get into the details about a specific subject. But I think we need that. We need more explanation and people out there willing to talk about it, because I don't think people are as stupid as government officials seem to think. And I really don't. I think that the issue is that people learn differently, right? So some people are visual learners, some people are audible learners, some people learn through mechanical learning, right? So they do the thing and then they learn it. And some people learn through reading. You got these amazing learners who just read and absorb information. And then there's a bunch of other ways that people read, and then some people have a little bit of each of those, and different. It's all different. So
that's the
most people that go into
people that can digest a bunch of information, and I think that's how city council needs people that can digest a ton of information and boil it down for them so they understand the issues, rather than them also having to have that skill along with going with in one district. I know that there's 7 community meetings a week that that if you're a district council you should probably be at. It's the whole system. The more and more I look at it and think about it, it just really seems like especially the last charter change in the 80s, whole system was set up to, one, let the West Side control the city. That's why we have an inordinate amount of at-large councilors, and 2, to have a God King that council just says yes to, because they have no choice. They don't have any resources to find a reason to say no.
Yeah, there also seems to be a lack of political will. There's so here's the thing, right? We live in a world that's not easy, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on, internationally that's beyond this conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And it's easy for those issues to become the issues that are talked about in this arena. But the fact is that most political will is exercised at the local level, right? That concept, all politics are local, it is a very true thing. And so if ever the bigger issues are going to get solved, the local people have to use political will. So if you win, for example, and you have the most votes, you get this momentum behind you that allows you to exercise political will. And people might not agree with your idea, but they're like, hey, we voted for him, so we got to go with what he says, right? Or what he does. And you see people take risks. And some national politicians take crazy risks with their political will. But at the local level, you don't see this willingness to push back against the devaluing of their positions. So when as the executive has gained more power in the city, you see more councilors that are unwilling to fight back. They're willing to say, I'm happy to work with the administration on this, and I'm happy to work with the administration on that. But you very rarely see them pick public fights with the administration. With each other, they're snipping at each other all the time.
Yeah.
But actually pushing back against the system with political will is a very scary position to be in, it seems like. And as you said, the West Side has been politically dominant for so long that I think there's a fear on the East Side or the South Side to have a real coalition that could make an impact in those races, right? So then you see a splintering of those other coalitions that could be available because they're used to dealing with one coalition that sucks, so they don't want to deal with the ones locally that might lead to it. But then what's needed is compromise. You got to compromise. You can't get everything you want, man. And it is what it is. So
Yeah.
Mick Jagger said it a long time ago, right? You want me to sing for you a little bit right now, Tom? I don't know if that'll become like a component. I'll sing for you right now. You want it?
Last subject of the day, and we'll do some more, but we'll do some more budget stuff in the future. There's probably a few more weeks of budget talk left before they approve the whole thing. Last thing on the agenda is the city manager's state of the city address last evening. We talked for a second before we started broadcasting, and I said I didn't really think he said anything, and you disagreed.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You start.
So I think he said a lot of things, and I think it comes from how we value things. And I think that's really the overall argument is, how do we value things? Do we value things? Do we value people? Do we value corporations? Do we value this idea? He talked about, for example, the city values its elderly residents, yet we just let Spectrum steal from them for 9 years. We value our disabled residents, yet we've had to have multiple disabled advocates fall down on sidewalks to get railings put in and ramps put in for years. We value our homeless veterans, yet the number one population of veterans in the city is actually homeless, and we are moving them out and we're clearing them out and we're doing these things. We value diversity. And he talked a lot about the numbers that he's delivered, his administration has delivered, these job numbers within the city administration. So diversity is only numerical, right? So this is where that conversation about diversity and racism and systemic things, it's really easy to say, hey, I hired 10 Black people. That sounds awesome, but why'd you hire them? And do they have real authority to make changes, to implement things? Or did you just hire them because they're Black? Because if that's why you hired them, that's not good either, right? This is the thing that you're dealing with is, are they also included in the conversations that are taking place? These very not transparent things. The other thing is this idea that you can't disagree with me. We should all be on the same plan. We should all be on the same vision.
We know whose plan? His plan.
His plan. So that's not democracy. We live in a democracy, and there was never any way that we were supposed to have a singular vision person that makes all the decisions for the city. And then at the same time, he says, "Well, I don't do everything by myself," but you want us to be on the same page with your vision,
right?
That's a little tough for me to handle. But then there's little decisions that bother me from a value position that is making me, I guess, be more vocal. For example, that video, it's a wonderful video. It shows all the cultures in the city, shows all the languages in the city, but it was missing some things. There wasn't anybody elderly. There wasn't a disabled person present. There wasn't someone who's unhoused. There was very few, young people in there, right, that were able to give, which tells you exactly what they're saying. We would like people between the ages of 20 and 50 with money to come to the city. And that's what we want to represent the city. Everybody there was a professional. All of the people that were there, awesome. But the problem is that that's not the reality of Worcester. We have radically poor people and we have radically rich people. We have a huge divide in economics between the two. It's a fact of reality that you can't get away from. And so making things more fair for people involves investing in the people that are currently here. What I heard was a vision for expanding the city with people who don't live here already, getting rid of the people who live here now, and creating a bigger tax base is the overall vision. None of that makes me feel comfortable about living in Worcester. None of that makes me feel included. And I'm a white dude with a red beard. But I also come from the streets. So I know exactly what it feels. And I've told this story in a bunch of other contexts. But when I was homeless 5 years ago, I was homeless just 5 years ago. I was in the bus station that used to have downtown, and there used to be a Dunkin' Donuts in there. And I had my bus pass that someone had bought me a month bus pass for $50. So I had a bus pass, but I was living in a motel on Route 9. And so to get from the bus station to Route 9, I had to either walk down Route 9, which was a really long walk, or take the bus. And I had just worked at the DCU Center for the Worcester Pirates football game overnight. I had been cleaning the stands and scrubbing off people's nacho cheese and all that stuff. So I was exhausted. I fell asleep in the chair in the station with a Dunkin' Donuts coffee in the little thing, and I just passed out. And I woke up to a police officer booting me in the chest. That happened to me. And I'm a white dude with a red beard. And the reason why is because someone thought I was homeless, because I was a little disheveled. I'm not going to say that I wasn't. And I was homeless, in fact. But why did I need to have that treatment? And I've seen that officer since. I see him a lot because I am now a member of the media and I'm able to go around and do things that other people might not get the chance to do. And he doesn't recognize me. He doesn't recognize me. He didn't even remember my face. My face is pretty kind of different. I'm an ugly dude, right? It is what it is, right? I'm a very distinct looking human being. Although my mother would tell you that I'm handsome, but I don't know that that's necessarily how everybody views me. But my point is that he was okay with booting a human in his chest, but he doesn't remember me to this day. That is an element of how our government, our system thinks about people in Worcester. And so to me, what I heard from City Manager Batista was a lot of nice things. And I hope some of the things he said actually happened. But when you hear market rate housing and affordable housing, I never hear housing for like the poorest of the poor. I hear apartment based.
They have no way to do it.
Huh?
There's no, because for one, regardless of their desire to do it, which is probably none, but I don't know what's in their hearts and heads. They have no ability to do it. I mean, they're up against, if they're going to do, I mean, the reality is that if they're going to do Burncoat High School and middle school up there, they're going to be up against the debt limit for the next bunch of years, besides the money they borrow every year.
So we're going to talk more about this over the next few weeks about the budget, but that comes from a lack of creativity. Because let me tell you something right now. Over on Southgate Street, Table Talk Pies is building a brand new warehouse behind our church, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, they broke ground. They built the first and the second levels with pilings, by the way. If anybody knows construction, building pilings versus a floating foundation is a completely different thing. And they've done it in 3 weeks, Tom. 3
but
weeks.
The city doesn't have the money to pay for it. Well,
The city could get the money to pay for it because they bent over backwards to change all the zoning and allow Table Talk to do it like this. Because Table Talk said, hey, we bring a lot of jobs to the city. Start leveraging these companies, because that's what other cities do. And I'm not talking about, there's some people that comment on your things sometimes. They're like, oh, this is just yet another progressive bullshit, because the most conservative cities in the country do that now. They use leverage against corporations to get public projects done that are necessary. That's a fact. But local stuff leads to real change. You can really change things from the ground up if you have the will to do it. but they're afraid of the Chamber of Commerce. No one stands up to Tim Murray. They kowtow to him. They see him every day. Yet every time he's in the audience somewhere, they have to announce him like he's an incoming god. And I don't care. I listen. Maybe you don't like him. You're okay, or maybe you like him, but I can't deal with it. I'm just telling you. Why?
Slow down.
Why?
Stop.
I'm getting paused from the audience, but I'm just saying, like, the chamber does things for the chamber.
Listen, I'm not talking about that person.
Yeah.
He can talk about I'm talking. He can talk about all he wants about how there's no good journalism in the city, and then launch a state propaganda news outlet all he wants.
But there's another thing, right? What's the Business Journal? Catherine Hamilton, she wrote this great article about local media stuff, right? And it left a bunch of us out. You didn't get mentioned at all. Manny got one mention.
I got mentioned. I got to mention.
Yeah, you're going to mention, right? But I'm just saying, like, generally speaking, there's a lot of people in there because they don't consider it to be valuable. So Bill Shaner, who's a former Telegram and Gazette guy, he got, all the words through at him. And congratulations, Bill's doing a great job. But that's the proof of what's valued. And Catherine said they made an editorial decision. Worcester Business Journal, that's the second time in the last 2 months that you've done that, because you did the same thing with the movies. I went on Hank Stoll's show to talk about that.
Yeah, we're way off the path. Yeah, can we talk about the actual speech?
Okay, so anyways, this goes back to this overall concept that they're pro-corporation. Their vision is not a new vision. It's the same vision.
Wait, stop. Let's back up. He didn't articulate a vision. He said words that were flowery, that was very, very short on specifics.
But he talked about a new vision. But I have to go by his behavior since he's been the administrator. And the behavior as the administrator is to make sure all the corporations, the developers are the most, this is his statement, the developers are the most important partners. He said that publicly. He can change it now, but he can't change his behavior. Boston Capital, like the Table Talk Pies, Polar Beverages, the Red Sox. Let's go over and over it again. Bent over backwards. He actually said the Worcester Centrum, now DCU Center, is a driving economic force in the city. Is it? Is it? Do people that go to DCU things stay in the city afterwards and buy stuff here, or do they just come, park in the Major Taylor parking lot, and then bail out of the city immediately afterwards, causing massive traffic jams near the post office? Is it a driving economic? By the way, where does the money from the DCU Center go? Does it go to the city budget, even though the city owns it? Where does the money go? Where's the DCU contract go? This is what I'm saying. I have to go by behavior and evidence, Tom. I'm focused on things that are actually happening, and what he says versus what is happening is not the case. It's not reality.
He hasn't said it. He didn't say anything. What was the new policy announcement last night? There was none.
So then
what was the point of the speech?
Well, I think the Worcester Regional Research Bureau told you what the point of the speech was.
So they could do a political event, a 501c3.
So there's a group of people that kind of work together, and they like to get their flowers together, and like to have drinks together, and they like to get out together. And it's the same group of people. And listen, it was open to the public. I was grateful. We went there. We covered it. Leanne actually ran the camera by herself. She did a great job. We got a bunch of views from it. We got more views than some of the city channels.
Again, though, on the content of the speech, which I'm trying to keep us at, unsuccessfully, what was, saying nice things about city employees, that's great. You have 8,000 of them. You should probably keep them happy.
Yeah. I like that he said he's from Worcester. I like that he said he wants to make the city a better place. Those are all platitudes.
Yeah,
they're nice, but they don't have any particular to them.
Right.
Like
there was no detail.
Yeah.
No detail whatsoever.
And I want details. I want specific things. I want specific plans. And by the way, so people say, like there was the groundbreaking. Senator Kennedy was at the groundbreaking for that one of the new apartment projects near Lincoln Village, right? So it's going to put up a bunch of buildings. There's five projects in the last couple years, all with between 50 and 200 units, and they're all exactly the same. Go look downtown; they look exactly the same. They look the same. It's not just that They are the same, but they look exactly the same. They don't have rental rates that are fair, at all. I applied for the Revington on purpose, just to see what the rate is. There's no income thing. I wasn't able to access. They said all the slots were already taken. It's not even
I
open yet.
I do.
It's not open yet. How is that? How is that possible?
One thing that I noticed from the speech is that about 10 minutes in, he said he had previously mentioned a bunch of homelessness and housing costs, et cetera, et cetera. He raised the some serious problems the city faces. But then a few minutes later, he says those challenges, like the ones I mentioned previously, are being faced by every major municipality in the nation. Yet there are two cities, according to a recent report, that have a worse housing market than us. I'm really sick of, we're going in the right direction. I don't know what the metrics are for that. And, all these problems are everywhere. This is one of the worst housing markets in the country. It's worse than Boston. Boston has a higher vacancy rate. You can talk about people moved out of Boston all he wants. That's an interim census count that's done by estimation and is not an actual count. Like, it's fun. It's also a point. They're making a big deal that we got 1,100 new residents. Well, they lost residents in the 22 count, which is again an estimate. Nobody pays attention to it because it's an estimate. They don't actually go out and count people. They had estimated the city lost. Estimated the city lost residents, and nobody talked about that. But now they revised it upward, and let's talk about it every day. It's stupid.
Yeah, of course, because it sounds good, Tom. You got to use the thing that you. I mean, it's the way of the world, right? You use the thing that makes it sound good, and it furthers the argument. But again, what you and I are doing right here will be marked as division because we're disagreeing with nothing.
And tell me what the metric is that we're going in the right direction.
I mean, for the people that are living in the Revington.
No, I mean, on the whole, though. See, on the whole, though, there are 16 municipalities that have a lower median household income than Worcester. 16. There's 351 in the state. There's 59 cities. 6 of them have a worse per capita. Not per capita. Median household income than per capita is about the same as well, though, if you look at it. But lower median household income than the people of Worcester, and that hasn't changed in forever. And all the only vision for the vision for changing that dynamic of how poor the people in the city are. We have, according to the 2020 census, maybe it's been revised downward, but I doubt it because we hear about it every 5 seconds. We had a 19.5% poverty rate. Tell me how we're going in the right direction. Where's the right direction?
What do you mean? He said that we are. The state of our city is strong. What do you mean, Tom?
Yeah. The state of our people is not so strong, though. And we don't seem to have a plan to do anything about it.
Well, no, because he doesn't include all the people.
Right.
So that's the thing. Go to the video. There's a lot of people, a lot of chunks of people that are left out. And so then you can say it's strong for the people that are included. But if you don't include all the people, it's not that it's different. So if you bring everybody in, again, the unhoused, it's consistent. And this is something I've talked about with Mayor Petty. I've talked about it with every city councilor. I've talked about it with the city manager. The overall approach to the unhoused is they're not from Worcester. It's an overflow from other places, even though he's saying in the speech that it's the same thing that everybody's dealing with. So if everybody's dealing with it, how are we getting the overflow?
Well, this is a thing that every city deals with, though. This is, you don't think that the towns around Boston, a town in northern, the North Shore isn't dumping everything into Boston? Of course they are, because they don't have the resources to deal with it.
But what I'm saying is that the housing crisis, it does exist everywhere. So, but the vast majority of the unhoused in this city are unhoused here. They didn't get unhoused in New Hampshire. They got unhoused here. And so you can't say that the unhoused crisis is a nationwide or a worldwide thing, but then say the people that are unhoused here aren't from here. That's crap. And so that's what I'm saying. Just because you have one speech, which is, it's great to have this nice, flowery, nice speech, But to try to undermine or change the narrative that's been playing out in front of our eyes, I can't do that. I can't participate in that. So I reject it. And I reject this very, very concept that division comes from disagreement. It doesn't. Disagreement is I'm allowed to stand up and say, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with that. I think the way that we're doing it is wrong. Hey, here's a great thing. We all agree about housing stock, right? We need more housing. We all agree with that. But then we create rules that stop new houses from being built. And we create rules that don't fully do everything, like the new ADU rule. Instead of letting it has to be the owner occupied. So now you can't be a landlord. Da, 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 da. There's all these things. There's all these Worcester things that stop the thing from happening, even though we have right in front of us an opportunity to do things. There's land in this city. There's places that could be rebuilt. There's unique creative ideas that could be applied, but we don't let our people do it. But we'll bring in Boston Capital to do it. We'll bring in Boston
or a former city manager.
Right.
So
that blows my mind. So like I would listen, and I'd have no problem explaining my bias, right? One of our sponsors at Manny J Media is the Torres Group, right? Jeff Torres, he's a friend of mine. I love that guy. And PIA Realty, which is a mostly Hispanic speaking group of realtors who are killing it in the city. People don't even realize they don't get the same opportunities that the big companies do because they won't allow a smaller local company to get involved with some of those big developments, because the ways to get in, you have to have X amount of capital and all this other stuff, and you can't do anything creative. Yet we've seen some of the big developers fail at their projects. So why can't we let local talent do stuff? That's what the vision is. The vision is the locality doesn't have the talent that we need, so we need to bring in stuff from the outside. That's what the vision is. And that's what the practical application is, which makes the people who live here now feel like they're left out. So he did go after that. He said, hey, you think the government needs to do everything, so then you feel upset and you feel, I get it. I get exactly what he's saying. Because you do feel left out because it looks like you're being left out. You're responding to the reality that's being played out in front of you.
Yeah. It's
that's the vision that's presented. So we need to push back against that.
Right. And this don't be divisive stuff is really, I mean, they say don't be divisive, and then they feed you a bunch of non-specific stuff about vision and not anything they're actually going to do.
It just means shut up. That's what they're saying. Shut up.
Exactly.
They're telling me to shut up. They're telling you to shut up. That anybody who disagrees, they want Manny to shut up. They just don't want us to talk. And you know what? I'm going to talk. And I understand that leads to controversy and potential conflict and all that other stuff. But I know how to talk without cussing people out. I know how to have a conversation about stuff. And you know what? You want to know what? There's stuff happening all over the city right now that's good. But it's very much operating outside of the city administration and the city government's vision. And that's the thing. There's a competitive vision that's here. He says we should all be on the same team. How can you be on the same team when you don't even tell me where the tryouts are?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get into how he gets there. He's there, but everybody's not required to agree with him.
Put me in.
Well,
but don't tell me where the football field is.
Right. And it's this idea that there's only one way to do things, and that's the right way, and that's their way. It seems to be like that's that message. It's not said exactly that bluntly. But we have a vision for the future. We're going in the right direction. All these like sayings, all these mottos, and I agree with you. It is shut up. We know what we're doing. And well, again, there's 6 cities in the state that have a lower median household income, 6 of 59. And their only solution is, shockingly, the Chamber of Commerce's solution, which is we have to lower commercial rates, which means by default you have to increase residential rates on people that don't make any money.
And
instead of having a generational vision about how we're going to build a world-class education system in our city so we can train the workers that that companies need. Because another thing companies spend a lot of money on, I've said this before, but a lot of things companies spend a lot of money on is finding people to work for them.
And another thing, there's a bunch of cities, medium-sized cities around the country that have invested in small businesses, entrepreneurs. We've seen small businesses close all over the city. They're not all because of Polo Park, but there's also this kind of like acceptance by the city that's like, oh, it's part of doing business.
Yeah.
Small businesses close. It is what it is.
I agree.
But why
All right,
not
well, that was
invest
nice.
in that?
Well, there's nothing left to invest. They can't borrow any more money. I mean, they have to build the schools, and
What do you
there's not
mean?
enough.
He said we have the best bond rating we've ever had. We can borrow money.
No, but they're up against their limit. Which
But
that gets left, and that's what I mean. Like,
this is specific. He said we have the best bond rating we've ever had.
yeah, right. Everything's great. Everything's wonderful. We're going in the right direction.
That bond rating might go down if we miss some of those Polo Park payments.
Well, then they won't do that. But I mean, I don't know what that direction is. Like, again, I was looking for some policy substance, and we certainly didn't get that. But substance isn't for the masses in Whistler.
So then, I mean, I guess if I do want to like give a if I want to say something positive, I would say that it is nice to have a positive outlook, but I want a specific positive outlook. I want to know specifics about what we're doing and what we're trying to do, and I also want it to be known that accountability, the only accountability that we can hold anybody to, is this public accountability. So, I guess that's the way we got to do it. And yep, I recognize that people don't vote. That's mostly from discouragement. They don't feel encouraged to vote. I recognize that people don't want to participate. That comes from discouragement. The whole cable committee, we just quit because we felt like we weren't even being, involved. You know what I mean? The Human Rights Commission feels left out. The DEI one got dissolved, and blah 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 blah. We can give a million examples. It's good to be positive, but we need to be positive and conciliatory in this idea that, hey, maybe I've made mistakes. I don't hear any admission of ever doing anything wrong. I don't hear anything specific about mistakes made. Let's talk about that. To be a good leader, you have to be open to criticism. You have to be willing to accept your mistakes, and you have to be ready for attacks and not taking it personally. And that's what we see from this administration. And not just this, but Ed was the same way, and so was Mike. Everybody takes it personal if you disagree with them. That's not leadership. That's just what we do when we're like immature. You got to be able to handle it.
And we should get out of here because we're at 1:13. But I guess my last comment will be, and you can have one if you'd like. But my last comment will be, there is one thing that is certainly similar, and I think a lot of things actually are different between this administration and the last. Although there's obviously many similar people, but I do think there's a lot that's different. But one thing that's not is, I think what frustrates them the most is their inability both of them to control the public narrative. And I think that's what they're most frustrated about. And that shouldn't be it. There's a lot of things to be frustrated about in this city. And that one shouldn't be on the list. I mean, you can be frustrated about it. You can feel how you feel, but it shouldn't be on the top of the list by any means.
Yeah. But if you're doing the right vision and you're working hard to get people on the same team, then what does it matter what some fringe journalist says, right? Who cares? Why do you care so much about that?
Oh, I talk with all sorts of people, almost all the councilors, all kinds of people in city government, but that office doesn't talk to me.
Oh, well, you got to be nicer, Tom.
I gotta toe the state line a little more.
That's true. Well, oh no, Manny's gonna hear that and think you're saying that about him. No.
Manny and that conversation that he led. Sorry, I have a dog. The conversation that he led on the cable stuff, especially, was good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, Manny asks tough questions.
Yeah,
and he
just has a nicer demeanor about it.
Like, I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, no, he's just got such a nice demeanor about it. Whereas I'm just going to hammer you with questions, and that's why nobody wants to talk to me. Well, one person at least in the city doesn't want to talk to me. City councilors don't seem to be scared, but
that's all right. Well, we'll see. Hey, maybe we can soften you up a little bit by doing this show, and maybe they'll have you on.
When am I going to be on Manny's show?
Oh, actually, we're gonna set that up. Absolutely. Manny just got his car this week, so we're gonna make it happen. We'll make it happen very soon. You're gonna come into the
All right.
studio and get yourself a Tom and Manny show. He'll love that.
I'll be ready to drop firebombs.
All right. He'll ask you all kinds of good questions. Manny's gonna probe the background. All right. We're way over time. We went, but hey, we're getting better though. We're getting better.
115.
Right?
Yeah, we're at
115.
115.
We're gonna hit that. Yeah.
All right. Is that all?
That's all for this week.
All right. Thank you
In
for
Worcester.
suffering through this with us, and we'll try to do better next week. This week in Worcester out.